let's look at Jesus's slightly different situation with his coat of arms. And you can see he used very thin weight and that the artboard is an odd size. So instead of resizing this artboard, I'm going to create a new artboard, and I'm going to make it 1,000 by 1,000. Good standard to start with. And we're just going to have the 1, so 14, 11, 13, Berlanga Crest Revised. Now it's going to be an empty one to start with. If I look at advanced, notice it says RGB, which I think will work better for Photoshop. I'm going to go back to his coat of arms, select everything, and Control-C copy. Now when I go over to this one and Control-V paste, you can see it's not really close to a 1,000 by 1,000, which would be a decent resolution. But I'm going to click on the corner and hold down Shift and make this big enough to fill in a nice high resolution. Control-0 brings it all back. But now we're going to need the weight of these lines to be a little higher, because right now they're very, very thin. So I'm going to select all and go to my stroke here and choose a thicker and thicker stroke until it gets maybe 3, and that looks nice and sharp for this resolution. So that should work nicely. Now if I look at my layers, I've just got the 1, and I really want to be able to have these different things on different layers. So let's do that. I'll start in the center here, and we'll put the cross on its own layer. So yes, it's possible to go ahead and use the selection tool. The lasso tool is a really good one to use when you have odd shapes. So I'm going to draw a lasso around it, and then I'm going to group all of those together. So that now when I make a selection, if I select away, I can move it, and I can Control X to cut, make a new layer, and paste it, and then put it back into the spot where it was before. I'm going to label this one Cross. Okay. Now I'm going to get the church. So I'm going to deselect. Yeah, that cross did this to me earlier as well. Let me ungroup that, select away, and see if I can't get just that. It seems like there's some other part to it as well. If I select everything on there, I've got this great big one. I think there's some little piece somewhere else. So I'm going to undo, let's see, ungroup again, and see if I can't get just that. Control X. I'm going to a whole new layer, make this one the cross, and then Control V onto that one. There we go. That seems like it worked a little better. Let me toss that one. Alright, so now I can go and get the church. It's made up of a lot of little lines. I'm going to go and get those with my lasso tool. Zoom in a little bit more. Control X, make a new layer, call it the church. Control V, and it puts it right where it was before. Nice. Okay. So that is still individual pieces. But if I want to select everything on that layer, I can easily do that by clicking on the little circle. So I will now group all of those together so that I can select one piece and all of it gets selected. Okay, so we got the church, the cross, and now we've got the shield, this part right here. So I'm going to Control X, and notice I didn't get all of the lines. So I'm going to Shift click on the others, and that's a way of selecting without getting extra ones. If you've got a selection tool like this, you can also get it a lot of times, but if there's overlapping, sometimes you have to do it by hand. I didn't get this one here, so that's good. So I'm going to Control X, new layer, and paste. And this time it didn't put it right back into its spot, so I'm going to try and find its position. Turn these two on, and yep, that looks pretty good. And what that'll do is I can fill that in to a solid color and even see through these windows to the shield behind it if I want to. Alright, so those are those three things. Now we've got this helm up here. It'd be nice to do that separately as well. Let me try and draw a rectangle, and it looks like I got the helm including this collar. So I'm going to go ahead and Control X, make a new layer, call it the helm, and paste it back in there, and then move it into position while I've still got my wits about me and can see what we have here. That looks like about where it was. Looks pretty good. But now I can turn it off and turn it on. And what that does is it leaves me without some lines that I might need depending on how I want to fill things in. So I could go in and draw some new lines, or perhaps I can take some of these points and extend them. Let me zoom in a little more so you can see what it is I'm doing. So this point right here, this anchor, I can bring it over and now it's connected. While I'm here, I'm going to clean up a couple of others. Not sure what the original looks like. That's where you will have a bit of an advantage, but maybe we can recreate some of the things. If I want to add an extra point, I can add a point right in the middle, go back to my direct selection, and do some things depending on what we want. Let me add two more, take that middle one, and maybe make this a little more pointy. Who knows? Okay, let me find this anchor point and connect those, and then maybe this one can simply connect over there, and this one over here. Probably not the way it was intended. Once we have the helm on top, it won't matter as much, but that's one way to do it. Okay, so this is the point where I would say, well, let's make sure that things are sealed up nice and tight so that we can do our easy painting in Photoshop. So go in and look for these little spots where you were trying to get things to connect, and just make sure that there's no gaps. So I'm using the space bar a lot to move around inside. So this is the kind of thing you might want that handle of the sword. As you go around, fill them in. Okay, you get the idea. So clean it up as best you can, and you'll be able to fill things in pretty nicely. All right, so one more challenge here. Let me connect that one. And that is what we have here with the banner. So if I select the banner, I've got the name. I can shift click on these extra points, and I can extract those. No, not very easily. Maybe I'll go the other way. Let me select everything above, and I've got the swords, points, and everything except the banner. So now I will Control X. I wonder why it's not giving me all of that. Let's zoom in and find out. Yeah, Control X. I think there's some extra ones there. Shift clicking. Sometimes there's a challenge. I'm going to make a new layer and paste that in there. Try and put it into position. hide it and see what is going on, maybe because those are connected. But I should be able to get these points and take them out. Well, I am failing miserably and I don't understand why, but that's the way it is sometimes. I'm going to put those back in. And then maybe have to do some fixing up. Let's see what I can do. If I take this anchor point and move it up there, I can put the sword point back on to the sword. Maybe have these overlap a little bit. Same thing over here. Maybe I need to draw some new ones. I don't know. Alright, so there's a little bit more of a sword. I think this point here, however, needs to go down to the very tip. There we go. So now we've got the sword points. We've got the helm, we've got the shield, we've got the cross. Only thing left is this. And this is really easy to fix because we can direct select this point. It's in a straight line. Well, we thought it was. Let's take this one and stretch it over that way. Take this one. See if this one cooperates a little better. So now we would be able to fill in with two colors, one color for the sides and one for the other. Now remember, don't be drawing out the text at this point in the game. You have the text tool to type in many different places. But now we've got the banner, decoration, the helm, the shield, the church, and the cross. And we'll be able to work with those independently. I don't like the way this turned out. There's got to be something better, but without the layer underneath, I wouldn't delete that just yet. It's hard to tell. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a second tutorial exporting this to Photoshop.